Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968, remains one of the most iconic westerns ever made, with unforgettable performances, and a story that still captivates audiences today. But what happened to the legendary cast after the cameras stopped rolling? Fast forward to 2025, and some actors continued to shine on the big screen, others stepped away from Hollywood entirely, and a few chose paths no one could have predicted. From surprising career moves to fascinating personal stories, we're uncovering where the stars of this classic Western are now, and trust us, some of their journeys are as dramatic and thrilling as the film itself. Claudia Cardinale was born on April 15, 1938 in Tunis, and took on the role of Jill McBain in 1968, at the age of 30, delivering a performance that was both haunting and magnetic, as a former prostitute navigating a brutal male-dominated world with steely determination and latent vulnerability. Jill's character was central to the film's tension, embodying resilience, cunning, and the complex interplay of fear and empowerment, leaving audiences simultaneously sympathetic and in awe of her survival instincts. Cardinale's own early life mirrored such struggles. Born into a modest family, she endured the hardships of colonial Tunis, endured frequent teasing for her appearance, and faced the trauma of an early secretive pregnancy at 19, fathered by a troubled relationship that left her isolated and under intense social scrutiny. Professionally, she overcame a rigid system controlled by producer Franco Cristaldi, who later became her husband, navigating the pitfalls of typecasting, forced dubbing in early films due to her hoarse voice, and the subtle manipulations of European cinema, which often exploited her beauty while challenging her artistic integrity. Off-screen, she faced the pressures of fame and an industry reluctant to grant women autonomy. Yet she remained fiercely independent, championing women's rights and serving as a UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador. Despite avoiding scandal, her personal history of secrecy manipulation and intense professional control revealed a life shaped by resilience and quiet rebellion. Cardinale's later years saw her remain a cinematic icon, balancing private discretion with public advocacy, and as of 2025, at 87, she possesses an estimated net worth of $10 million encompassing royalties, property, and residuals, a testament to a career that combined both artistic triumph and personal survival against societal and industry pressures. Jason Robards was born on July 26, 1922 in Chicago, and assumed the role of Manuel Cheyenne Gutierrez in 1968 at age 46, bringing a rugged, sardonic charm to the character that combined outlaw grit with a surprising moral compass, making Cheyenne both compellingly dangerous and deeply human. His portrayal infused the film with tension and pathos, balancing humor, menace, and vulnerability to create a multi-layered anti-hero whose unpredictable nature held audiences in thrall. Robards' early life was marked by upheaval. The divorce of his parents, coupled with a turbulent childhood and intermittent financial insecurity, forced him to internalize emotional pain and cultivate resilience traits that informed his complex performances. Professionally, he faced significant obstacles, including a long struggle with alcoholism that nearly destroyed his career, periods of being overlooked by Hollywood, and the personal toll of 4 marriages, including one to Lauren Bacall, fraught with infidelity, public scrutiny, and emotional strain. Robards' greatest career lows coincided with his personal battles, yet he rebounded to achieve the rare Triple Crown of acting, an Academy Award, Tony, and Emmy, cementing his status as one of the most versatile actors of his generation. He passed away on December 26, 2000, at age 78, from cancer, leaving an estate estimated at $5 million, comprising property royalties and intellectual property rights. His life story intertwined with addiction, familial complexities, and professional reinvention added layers of depth to his on-screen portrayals, leaving a legacy of nuanced, haunted, and unforgettable performances that continue to resonate in cinematic history. Henry Fonda was born on May 16, 1905, in Grand Island, Nebraska, and assumed the chilling role of Frank in 1968, at age 63, marking one of the most shocking departures in Hollywood history, as he transformed from the archetype of virtuous men into a sadistic, calculating killer whose icy blue eyes and cold smile left audiences unsettled. Frank's character personified cruelty, masked by civility, and Fonda's casting against type amplified the film's tension, delivering a villain whose quiet menace haunted every scene and lingered in viewers' minds long after the credits rolled. Fonda's own childhood was far from serene. Growing up in Nebraska, he faced modest means, emotional distance from his parents, and early exposure to the pressures of expectation and public image, fostering a lifelong tendency to maintain control and emotional detachment. His career, while legendary, was punctuated by personal complexities: 5 marriages, periods of estrangement from his children, and a reputation for aloofness that made him both revered and feared in private circles. Fonda's professional life was characterized by perfectionism, occasional clashes with directors and peers, and the struggle to reconcile his public image of integrity with private flaws, including a controlling temperament that sometimes cast shadows on collaborations. His health declined in later years, culminating in his death on August 12, 1982, at age 77 from heart disease in Los Angeles. At that time, his estate was valued at approximately $10 million, including property investments and royalties. Though his life was largely free from public scandal, the tension between his imposing screen persona and emotionally distant private life left a lasting impression, revealing a man whose enigmatic presence extended far beyond the roles he portrayed. Gabriele Ferzetti was born on March 17, 1925, and portrayed Morton in Once Upon a Time in the West in 1968, at age 43, embodying the ruthless railroad baron whose ambition and moral decay contrasted starkly with his physically failing body. Morton's character, calculating, aristocratic, and morally compromised, served as a chilling symbol of industrial greed and human hubris, earning both fear and fascination from audiences. Ferzetti's early life in Italy was turbulent. Raised in modest circumstances, he struggled with a temperamental school environment and was expelled from acting school for insubordination, a foreshadowing of a lifetime spent skirting authority and social expectation. His career, while prolific in European cinema, was marked by volatility. Rumors of numerous affairs with co-stars circulated widely, and his aloof personality often led to conflicts on set, frustrating directors who found him charming yet unpredictable. Ferzetti's Hollywood presence never matched his European acclaim, and while he enjoyed fame in Italy, his financial rewards in international cinema were limited, leaving him with a relatively modest fortune despite decades of work. Personal life challenges included strained relationships and the social pressures of being a leading man in an industry that scrutinized both talent and temperament, which he navigated with a blend of charm and guarded secrecy. Stability was further tested by the shifting nature of European film production and competition from younger actors, yet Ferzetti continued to work steadily, cultivating a sophisticated and enduring screen presence. He died on December 2, 2015, at age 90, leaving an estate estimated at $1 to $2 million, primarily from European film royalties, television appearances, and long-term intellectual property rights, solidifying his legacy as a masterful yet enigmatic actor whose life mirrored the moral complexity of the characters he so memorably portrayed. Woody Strode was born on July 25, 1914, and played Stoney in Once Upon a Time in the West in 1968 at age 54. Stoney's presence in that opening tableau is elemental. He is sculpted muscle and silent menace. A man whose few gestures say more than pages of dialogue, and audiences long remembered the way his calm could suddenly harden into danger. Strode gave the role a grave dignity that made the film's violence feel mythic rather than gratuitous. His childhood, however, was the inverse of myth, raised in a working-class black family in Los Angeles. Strode learned early that talent would have to fight institutional walls. Poverty, frequent moves, and the sting of racial humiliation taught him to mask pain behind athletic triumphs and stoic bearing. Career highs read like a trailblazer's checklist, college athlete, NFL hopeful decathlete. Then a move to Hollywood, where directors like John Ford and Sergio Leone used his monumental frame to populate eras of American myth. But every triumph carried Sting typecast into hulking exoticized roles, repeatedly denied romantic leads or complex hero parts because of the color of his skin. The film industry rewarded spectacle but punished individuality. Scandal in Strode's life was more the tabloid's appetite than his conduct, a lurid affair reported with actress Barbara Payton in the 1950s produced gossip columns that briefly tainted his reputation, while deeper wounds were structural, the business of Hollywood that profited from his image but refused equal billing or pay. The sharpest professional failure was systemic rather than singular. Despite undeniable talent and visibility, he never received the leading man roles or financial security. His talent warranted a slow career theft by casting prejudice that no lawsuit could cure. His private life held tenderness and turbulence relationships, constrained by long absences on location, and by the emotional cost of carrying public expectations. Later years brought illness and the long private decline of lung cancer, which claimed him on December 31, 1994, at age 80 in Los Angeles. His estate, modest by cinematic standards, estimated between $500,000 and $120,000. Jack Elam was born on November 13, 1920, and played Snakey in Once Upon a Time in the West in 1968 at age 48. Snakey is the twitch in the darker veins of Leone's opening, bug-eyed, unnerving, a silent threat whose crooked eye and jittery smile set the tone for a film that takes pleasure in the uncanny. Elam's performance stamped the character into the memory of anyone who has ever felt watched. That peculiarly American oddity, the boy from modest origins who becomes a professional caricature, began in a childhood of limited means, where teasing and physical schoolyard punishment left a man who learned to armor himself with comic menace. An accident with a pencil as a child left his eye misaligned and, in a cruel twist, provided the very trademark that made him famous. His career path was jagged. Trained as an accountant before the lure of performance, he rode into Hollywood, playing every kind of villain, often ferocious, often funny, and, for a time, the bottle was his other co-star. Early heavy drinking and unpredictable behavior turned set whispers into reputations that sometimes cost him work. Yet Elam reinvented himself, repeatedly shifting from snarling heavies to self-aware comic turns, and parlaying a peculiar persona into decades of steady employment. The most damaging professional failure was not a single lost role, but the slow narrowing of opportunity once typecast so singularly that directors could only imagine him as the freakish antagonist. He missed chances at diversified leading work and the attendant pay and prestige. Off-screen, his life oscillated between bohemian excess and later domestic calm. Rumors of raucous affairs and roadhouse escapades circulated in Hollywood lore, but they rarely spilled into legal scandal. Elam's sins were loud living and raw edges rather than criminal transgression. Health and time mellowed him. He died of heart failure on October 20, 2003, at age 82, in the quiet aftermath of a long career that left a tidy estate estimated at about $2 million. Charles Bronson was born on November 3, 1921, and took on the role of harmonica in Once Upon a Time in the West in 1968, at age 47, delivering a performance that cemented his image as the ultimate stoic avenger, silent brooding and haunted by a past that shaped his every action. Harmonica's enigmatic presence and the slow simmering build of tension around his character captivated audiences, creating a figure whose quiet menace and moral ambiguity became iconic in the Western genre. Bronson's childhood in Pennsylvania was tough. Born Charles Bakinski to Lithuanian immigrant parents, he grew up in grinding poverty and endured relentless teasing for his ethnic background and physical stature experiences that instilled a deep-seated resilience and a habit of masking vulnerability behind stoicism and silence. His career, while prolific, was peppered with tension, known for his gruff demeanor and strict control over his work environment. Bronson was frequently difficult on set, occasionally clashing with directors and co-stars, and his off-screen life reflected similar patterns, particularly in his controlling relationships, most notably with his second wife, Jill Ireland. The death of Ireland from cancer hit him profoundly, exposing a rarely seen vulnerability behind the tough exterior. Despite this, Bronson commanded unprecedented salaries, at one point being the highest-paid actor globally, but his dedication to his gruff, tough guy persona limited the range of roles available to him, and occasionally drew criticism from peers for typecasting. Bronson's life was also shadowed by smoking-related health issues and a persistent aura of isolation despite fame. He died on August 30, 2003, at age 81 from respiratory failure complicated by metastatic lung cancer and COPD in Los Angeles. His estate was valued at approximately $65 million, reflecting decades of high-profile work, strategic film choices, and enduring cultural cachet, leaving a legacy of uncompromising intensity, private grief, and cinematic immortality as one of Hollywood's most iconic anti-heroes. Laitsu Defy Dandratiz. Lionel Stander was born on January 11, 1908 in New York City, and was 60 when he appeared as the gruff, perceptive barman in Once Upon a Time in the West, a minor yet memorable presence that grounded the dusty saloon scenes with authenticity and gravitas. Stander's character, while limited in screen time, conveyed the quiet wisdom and observant edge of someone attuned to the moral and social currents of the West, his raspy voice and commanding physicality leaving a lasting impression. Off-screen, Stander was a firebrand and relentless individualist, a committed leftist who defied Hollywood's pressure during the McCarthy era, refusing to name colleagues before the House Un-American Activities Committee, which led to his blacklisting and years of professional exile. His childhood was riddled with economic hardship in an immigrant household and social derision that instilled resilience, toughness, and a biting sense of humor, tools he would wield throughout his tumultuous career. Professionally, he experienced both triumph and humiliation, from Broadway success to European film ventures, enduring the sting of being shunned by mainstream American studios, yet eventually staging a late career resurgence in television with shows like Heart to Heart. Personal life was equally tumultuous. Stander's outspoken politics, strong personality, and penchant for confrontation often created friction, and he navigated strained relationships with colleagues and partners alike. He died of lung cancer on November 30, 1994, in Los Angeles, at age 86, leaving an estimated net worth of $1 to $2 million, accrued through TV work, savvy real estate investments, and persistent dedication to his craft. Stander's life was a testament to defiance, resilience, and the enduring power of personality in shaping both screen presence and legacy. Frank Branya was born on February 24, 1934, in Asturias, Spain, and took on a minor yet vivid role in Once Upon a Time in the West in 1968, at age 34, as the pipe-smoking member of Frank's gang at the auction, a fleeting but memorable embodiment of menace and sly cunning. Branya's character contributed texture to Leone's morally stark universe, representing the familiar, almost ritualistic evil that populated his Western landscapes. His early life was turbulent. Raised in a working-class Spanish household, he endured chronic financial instability and the early loss of a sibling, which fostered resilience, but also a private, sometimes irritable personality. Branya's career was both prolific and grueling. Appearing in over 200 films, he was a mainstay of spaghetti westerns and horror films. Yet the work came with relentless pressure, dangerous stunts, and occasional disputes with directors over pay and creative input. Despite this, he earned a reputation for tireless professionalism, though colleagues noted a stubborn streak and eccentric habits on set, including insistence on pipe-smoking props in a manner that sometimes slowed production. His personal life was discreet but complex. He suffered from silicosis, yet continued working into his 70s, and though he avoided public scandal, private friends mentioned occasional bouts of alcohol use to cope with pain and industry pressures. Branya passed away from respiratory failure on February 13, 2012, at age 77. At his death, his net worth was estimated around $1 million accumulated from decades of steady work residuals and a published autobiography demonstrating the quiet rewards of endurance and consistency in a volatile industry. His legacy is one of reliability, a veteran actor whose dedication and distinctive presence left indelible marks on European genre cinema. Frank Wolff was born on May 11, 1928 in San Francisco, and was 40 when he portrayed Brett McBain in Once Upon a Time in the West in 1968, embodying the ill-fated Irish settler whose murder ignites the film's relentless cycle of revenge. McBain was a dreamer and family man striving to carve a future in a harsh and unforgiving West, and Wolff's brooding, introspective performance lent the character a quiet dignity and tragic weight that lingered long after his early death on screen. Off-camera Wolff was a complex and often tormented soul, known for his intelligence, melancholia, and intense emotional sensitivity traits that both fueled his artistry and exposed him to profound personal struggles. His childhood was marked by emotional turbulence, with a father absent for long stretches, and a mother struggling financially, leaving Wolff to develop an early awareness of fragility, rejection, and the need to mask vulnerability beneath charm and poise. Professionally, after an auspicious start in Hollywood, he migrated to Europe, where he became a staple of Italian cinema, yet he wrestled with typecasting, unstable work, and the frustrations of being an American outsider in a foreign industry, which sometimes led to clashes with directors and co-stars. Wolff's private life was shadowed by heartbreak, including a painful separation from his wife that reportedly exacerbated the depression that ultimately led to his suicide on December 12, 1971, in Rome at age 43. Though he avoided scandal in the tabloid sense, his internal battles were severe, and his net worth at the time of his death was modest, estimated under $100,000, consisting mainly of residuals from his European films. Wolff's legacy is both luminous and haunting, a brilliant actor whose off-screen fragility mirrored the vulnerability of the characters he portrayed, leaving a trail of admiration mingled with the tragic awareness of a life cut short. Aldo Berti was born on February 29, 1936, in Florence, Italy, and appeared in Once Upon a Time in the West in 1968, at age 32, as a poker-faced member of Frank's gang, silently exuding menace in a brief yet unforgettable presence. Berti's character, though minor, reinforced the film's tension with a cold, calculating edge, embodying the ruthless, almost mechanical cruelty of the outlaw archetype that Sergio Leone so masterfully deployed. Off-screen, his childhood was far from glamorous growing up in post-war Florence. He endured extreme poverty, the loss of his father at an early age, and the constant derision of peers who mocked his thin frame and shy demeanor, teaching him to hide his emotions behind a calm exterior, a skill that would serve him well in his stoic film roles. His career was a steady grind through Italian genre cinema, particularly spaghetti westerns, crime films, and low-budget thrillers. Berti often found himself typecast as the silent henchman leading to frustrations that occasionally boiled over on set, with directors and co-stars recalling his stubborn perfectionism and occasional clashes when scenes did not meet his internal standard. Though never embroiled in public scandal, whispers on sets suggested he could be difficult, demanding long takes and often remaining silent as a form of subtle protest when displeased. Personal life offered little respite. He never married, reportedly shunning romantic entanglements to focus on his craft, and remained intensely private, avoiding the social circuits that propelled contemporaries to fame. Later years were marked by health struggles culminating in a brain tumor that claimed his life on December 26, 2010, at age 74. His estate was modest, likely under $500,000, reflecting a career of diligent work in niche cinema rather than blockbuster success. Yet his legacy endures as one of the quietly menacing faces that defined Leone's cinematic landscapes, a study in how understated presence can leave a lasting impression on a genre that celebrated grand gestures. Keenan Wynn was born on July 27, 1916, and played the sheriff in Once Upon a Time in the West in 1968 at age 52. Wynn's sheriff is not a cardboard functionary, but a weathered sardonic force whose gravel voice and living room gravitas suggest a man who's seen too much and learned to joke to keep believing in order. Wynn's work on the role added a human bitter edge to what might otherwise have been a throwaway part. His upbringing carried celebrities. Double-bind, son of famed comedian Edwin Keenan, grew up under a spotlight that promised doors and delivered pressure, a childhood of emotional ambiguity, public expectation, and private scarcity that taught him to hide vulnerability with acerbic wit and a hard-working ethic. Professionally, Wynn was a machine. Hundreds of films, every sort of supporting role a face audiences trusted. Yet that trust came with costs. He endured the petty cruelties of studio politics, frequent typecasting as the hard-drinking foil or the jaded professional, and the corrosive sting of betrayal in his personal life when a marriage imploded under the weight of Hollywood entanglements. The most whispered scandal was a humiliating intimacy wound his wife, leaving him for his one-time best friend actor, Van Johnson. A rupture that reads like an old studio tabloid's nightmare, and which, as recounted in industry gossip, was tangled with the era's power plays and protection of star images. Wynn's greatest professional failure was paradoxical. His very reliability became his professional straitjacket. The actor who could melt into any supporting part rarely got the leading roles or the headline billing that translates into enduring wealth. He was rewarded with applause and work, not always with the financial cushioning of top-billed stars. Personal relationships frayed under the weight of frantic schedules, and later life was marked by health struggles and the gradual toll of decades on the road. He died of pancreatic cancer on October 14, 1986, at age 70 in Los Angeles, leaving an estate estimated in the region of $3 to $4 million, a sum that speaks to a prolific career converted into a modest financial legacy, royalties, and property rather than extravagant fortune. Paolo Stoppa was born on June 16, 1906, and took on the role of Sam the station agent in Once Upon a Time in the West in 1968, at age 62, bringing gravitas, earthy realism, and a touch of humor to the film's otherwise tense, stark narrative. Sam's practical, grounded demeanor and comic timing offered viewers a humanizing anchor amidst the morally charged landscape of the Western frontier, and Stoppa's commanding presence ensured the character left a lasting impression despite limited screen time. Stoppa's upbringing in Italy was far from easy. He was born into a working-class family and endured the pressures of poverty, early exposure to social unrest, and the necessity to navigate a world constrained by both political turmoil and familial expectations, fostering a disciplined, fiercely independent personality that would define his approach to acting. Professionally, Stoppa excelled in theater and became a titan of Italian performance, but his outspoken political views, especially his anti-fascist stance and Freemasonry involvement, created enemies and complicated some collaborations in the conservative post-war Italian entertainment industry. Off-screen, he was a prolific voice actor, lending his booming voice to dub Hollywood stars like Kirk Douglas, which brought both acclaim and the hidden stress of near-constant work. Personal life challenges were kept largely private, yet the intense focus on career and political convictions may have limited traditional family stability. Stoppa died on May 1988, at age 81 from leukemia in Rome, leaving behind a net worth estimated around $5 million from theater, film, and voice acting royalties. His life reflects the intersection of artistry, political courage, and personal discipline, producing a figure revered in Italian culture whose career was both celebrated and shadowed by the moral and social turbulence of his era, giving Sam a richness that transcended the screen. Thank you for joining us on this nostalgic journey through classic television history. If you enjoyed learning about the cast of Once Upon a Time in the West and where they are now, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more vintage Hollywood retrospectives, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing your memories and suggestions, so let us know which TV show or movie cast you'd like us to feature next.